mere days separating us from the much anticipated 9th generation of gaming, you've caught us looking backwards rather than forwards. While there is a rapidly approaching wave of new age content, interesting new IPs and titles filled with stunning visuals to gawp over, we can't help but cast our minds back to when this generation began, picking through each occurrence and trying to decipher if this generation can be deemed a true success. Of course, we have seen a leap forward in visual quality, several returning and brand new titles equally sharing the spotlight, plus a new wave of convenience that has taken center stage within gaming, with everything being smoother, more seamless, and instantly accessible than ever before. It has been a generation that has offered more instant validation, as it seems to be the growing necessity for gamers, and we are here to question, is this the direction we want to continue towards moving forward? Join us as we nostalgically look back on the 8th generation of gaming, the age of impatience. When do we want it? When the 7th generation of gaming came to a close, we were only beginning to see the narrative scope that games would eventually achieve. The end of this generation would play host to The Last of Us, arguably the catalyst that would begin the industry's need to produce cinematic experiences that rival Hollywood blockbusters. It would be unanimously praised by critics as the magnum opus of its generation, a game that would graduate top of its class and usher in the new generation with grace and decorum. However, if we fast forward to present day, we have just seen an update for this title some 7 years later, which has significantly reduced load times in a plea to keep this game relevant in the newest age of gaming. In our humble opinion, we didn't see the issue in waiting a handful of seconds for the next scene to trigger. However, it seems that this current generation of gamer as a collective can only find this game palatable if everything happens without any instance that requires waiting. This is just an example of how this current generation has played out. The industry has pandered to the younger generation, which needs instant gratification to find enjoyment. The internet-driven society we live in has created a need for constant stimulation, reduced our patience, attention spans, and thus we have seen a change in how games are made and marketed. To provide other examples of how this presents itself within gaming, I would refer you to the Xbox Series X and its new Resume feature, Marvel's Spider-Man on PS5 and its zero loading screen optimization, and even the accessories that we can get for the systems we play on. There is now a need for battery packs for controllers, charging docks, and other extras, all to ensure that when a pad runs out of juice that the player doesn't simply turn off the TV altogether in favor of using their phone, for example. It's a minefield that the industry has had to navigate in the last few years, and we question if it has been a product of our society as a whole or needless pandering that has formed a new impatient gaming culture. Splitting hairs. The best way to represent this argument is to compare the rate of progression we are seeing within gaming today. When we look to the mid-2000s, when games were still dominated by character models with sharp polygonal edges, we have seen such a jump in quality when we moved even a few years into the future. However, in today's current gaming climate, we have games that are making such minute changes to their game to hold bragging rights against their closest competitors. This new culture where fans of each respective system will check Digital Foundry for specs and rinse other players when their system cannot compete with the other. Yet in the cold light of day, this difference will be so small, many fans wouldn't be able to point it out if it was right in front of them. This has led to more nefarious game companies taking advantage of this culture, with companies such as EA offering a game that is only slightly more polished than the previous year's obligatory annual release, add a few arbitrary changes and one somewhat intriguing new feature, and this will be just enough to bring players back for another year. So it begs the question, is our own ignorance, impatience, and sense of entitlement leading to a poorer stock of games as a whole? A beacon of hope. The saying goes that light can be found even in the darkest of places. Well, if we consider the current gaming climate to be that dark underbelly, we say that there are indeed torches lighting the way to a brighter future. There is still a strong number of vanguards within the industry, fighting against the convention of corporate greed, but we can think of none better than Stardew Valley sole creator Eric Baroni as an example. Not only has this man created a game that offers one of the most wholesome gaming experiences that money can buy all on his own, he also continues to work tirelessly on the project, making this game one of the most value for money titles you can buy today. Eric has produced 4 full-blown updates to this game since its release, each offering countless quality-of-life additions, a wealth of new content and constant bug fixes, and maintenance to keep the player base healthy and the community of players happy. This is a man that loves what he does, sees this game as a passion project, and wishes to leave a legacy within the industry, which is more than we can say about many big gaming companies with astronomical resources and budgets in the field today. This is exemplified by changes to the gaming culture that we grew up with as recently as 10 years ago. We now rarely see local couch co-op in games anymore, ushering in a new era of online gaming with players isolated to their own rooms with their own systems and an instant access to anyone around the world. It can make you feel so connected, and yet so alone at the same time. But this is the culture that we ourselves have created. Plus, we're seeing more and more evidence of increasing crunch culture and bad working conditions within a constantly increasing number of game development studios implementing that culture and treating their staff more like machines or as resources that burn out and need to be replaced, always striving to meet that tight release date deadline or get the latest game update out that must conform with the newest trend or the latest culturally relevant event. Yet if we cast our minds back to the 90s, when games were in their infancy, developers such as Rare, Black Isle Studios, and many others would find just as much success through a much more lax, attentive, and creatively driven focus. Some of us players have also created additional pressure on developers through our constant need, craving, and entitlement for that pristine 4K, 60 FPS visual, narrative, and mechanically sound masterpiece on every outing. So we wonder, is this going to eventually see the entire industry burn out, much as it did all those years ago, courtesy of Atari? Take the good with the bad. The simple fact of the matter is, it's unlikely we will stop this speeding locomotive of entitlement anytime soon. So we're likely to see this trend continue into the next generation of gaming. However, we have to remember the positives that have come through this process. For example, we've seen a massive push from developers to improve upon the accessibility of games to ensure that they reach the widest audience possible and encourage more inclusivity. Just take The Last of Us Part 2's comprehensive accessibility options as an example. Plus, we've seen studios become more creative in their approaches in an attempt to stand out from the crowd. It's no longer good enough to be the best looking game with the visuals being so lifelike almost by default at this stage. So many teams and turning to the avenue of AI to make their game the most authentic and unique IP on the market. Take Watch Dogs Legion for example, with its AI recruitment system that lets you play as literally any NPC you encounter, a feat that would have been unthinkable a few years ago, and serves as a much stronger unique proposition than more detailed hair follicles, for example. Then lastly, we can see some studios and publishers once known for their corporate mindset of just focusing on maximizing sales and profits, greatly changing their ways recently. Perhaps the most poignant example is Activision, who took their Call of Duty franchise, understood that the annual rinse and repeat formula was no longer an option, went away and recalibrated their approach, and then came back with a soft reboot of the Modern Warfare series that has been a return to form for the franchise, and also bringing important franchises like Crash Bandicoot and THPS back into the spotlight as high-quality remakes and sequels, which is something we wholeheartedly commend and support. It's a step in the right direction, and we can only hope that it bleeds into other companies such as EA, which we used to be fans of, admittedly, a really long time ago, moving forward. All in all, despite all the criticism we can heap on the current culture of gaming, the societal effects of the internet, the sometimes really excessive corporate greed of some of the largest gaming Goliaths, and the sense of entitlement we all feel towards new releases being perfect, we cannot help but feel that this generation is like a flawed gem. Sure, it has its imperfections, but it's still a jewel worthy of adorning a crown. We have seen some positive moves within the industry, a leap forward in narrative storytelling quality, the dawning of AI at the forefront of development, and developers building titles with every type of gamer in mind. This may have been the age of impatience with gaming, but as the dust settles, we find ourselves content with proceedings and ready to take the 9th generation as it comes. We are ready for the new age of gaming, imperfections and all. So, that's our opinion on the 8th generation of gaming and its impact on gaming culture. What are your thoughts on this generation as it now ends? Has it been the best we've ever seen? What has been your highs and lows for this generation? What changes do you think the new generation will bring? Let us know in the comments. Also, if you like this content, then why not like, subscribe, and head over to our website, VeryAliGaming.com, for more daily written gaming content that you'll surely enjoy. Plus, if you want to do your bit for the channel completely free, then check out the links in the video description to access a handful of hand-selected great gaming deals. It will come at no extra cost to you, and we will get a little percentage of the purchase you make to help us keep making these videos and publishing gaming articles on the website. You get a new game at a great price, and also support the channel and content that you love. Another way of supporting the channel for free is to use the creator tag VeryAli at checkout when you buy from the Epic Games Store or from Fortnite's in-game store. We really appreciate your support, and it greatly helps during these trying times that we're going through. You've been watching VeryAli Gaming, and we'll see you very soon.